Hello, hi everyone. Myself Prithvi. Today, welcome you all for my YouTube channel. So, this is a DevOps course which I'll be teaching you guys. The person who is doesn't know anything about DevOps, starting from the person who doesn't know about the DevOps, from the fresher to the person who knows something about DevOps. To that extent, this course is gonna take you guys. So, please watch this course throughout the series. I'll be talking about all the DevOps tools which I'll be using in this video, and this is the video of introduction what I will be covering in this throughout this course, what we are going to achieve at the end result. So firstly, so this is my introduction which I want to give you. So this is my introduction, myself Prithvi. So I'm working as a network lead in the current organization. So I have a couple of certificates. I'm a GCP solution architect actually. So and also I'm a CCNA certified. So both are active certificates till now also. So I have an expertise in Cisco SD-WAN technology and GCP cloud computing, enterprise network management. In the DevOps, I have expertise in the many tools like Terraform, GitHub, and Jenkins, and Docker, Kubernetes, and Ansible. And also I have scripting experience in batch scripting, also in Python. So automation testing using Postman for the web utilities to test the endpoint which is been developed by the developers. So and the Linux administration skills like Red Hat, CentOS, and Ubuntu. So and also I have an expertise in implementing the Argo CD continuous delivery kind of an architecture in terms of delivering the customer solutions, in terms of delivering the continuous delivery. So the continuous integration which we're going to integrate with the for Jenkins or TeamCity and Argo CD, we especially use it for the Kubernetes deployments. So this is about the my introduction. So let's see about what is DevOps. So DevOps is a infinite life cycle. It is a continuous integration and a continuous delivery, continuous deployment process actually. So first we're going to start with a plan cycle. So we'll just plan it. So how we want to deploy it, what are the utilities we want to use it, what are the application which we want to integrate in this DevOps life cycle. So how we're going to automate, what are the tools which we're going to use, all these things in the planning phase we're going to decide. So in the next phase we're going to code. So in the coding phase, the developer starts to code the applications and how the interface should be look like and what is the database. Everything will be contained in the code. And in the build phase, here where the DevOps person who comes into the picture, where a person who is going to build with the help of the Jenkins job, or in the code part where it is going to come like a GitHub. We will going to push the code to the GitHub where it is written and it is being taken into the build stage with Jenkins, and the test phase where it is been, there are several tools like Selenium and JUnit, the P-test, and everything is there. So in this video, I'm not using any kind of a testing tools, like it is integrated with the unit test like a Maven. So it is going to test in the build phase itself. So nextly, so we're going to release that cycle and we're going to deploy it. In the deployment phase, we're going to use the Kubernetes environment. So in the configuration management tool, we're going to use the Ansible actually. So this is the whole CI/CD process which every organization, every person who's been in the DevOps environment, it usually follows. So operate and monitoring phase. So it is basically a operations activity where they're going to monitor and operate, then troubleshoot what is the uh, problem which is occurring in the current production environment, how it is being communicated to again into the coders. That is the continuous process and continuous delivery process. So the next slide. So there are various tools which is available in the DevOps life cycle. So in this video, in this course, which I'll be using is, first one is the GitHub actually. So for the code and for the build process, we're gonna use Jenkins. So and next we're gonna use the CI/CD tools. We're gonna use Jenkins, and we're gonna use Docker and push it to the Docker hub, the image which you're gonna build, and we're gonna use Ansible as a configuration management tool, and we're gonna deploy it in the Kubernetes. So here where we're gonna use the cloud provider like GCP, Google Cloud. So many people are fully focused on AWS and Azure and all. So this video is fully focused on, since I'm a GCP architect, which I'll be deploying it in the GCP actually. So that is good to have an another cloud provider experience in terms of deploying your own production environment. Okay, so this is the tools which I'll be using. So the first thing, so what are all the things which will be taken into the different consideration while doing this course? The first, what we're going to do is that we'll build and deploy it on the Tomcat server. In this, we're going to set up a CI/CD with the GitHub integration. We're going to pull the code into the Jenkins. We will build it by the Maven. The war file will be taken from there, and we're going to deploy it in the Tomcat server. So in this process, we're going to set up Jenkins and configure the Maven and Git, and set up the Tomcat server, integrate the GitHub Maven and Tomcat server with the Jenkins, and create a CI, continuous integration and continuous delivery job, and test the deployment. So this is the first phase which we're going to complete our CI/CD process. In the next phase, we are going to deploy the artifact onto the Tomcat server. So this is the phase. This is an workflow which I'm showing you. So where it's going to pull the code from the GitHub. When the developer commits the code, it is pushed to the GitHub, and from the GitHub, the Jenkins is going to pull the code, and it's going to build with the help of Maven, and it is going to deploy to the Tomcat server. This is the first phase which I'm talking. So in the second phase, so we're going to build the image. So, and we're going to deploy to the container. So first, we're going to set up a CI/CD with the GitHub, Jenkins, Maven, and Docker. Instead of Tomcat server, we are containerizing it, and we are going to deploy it to the we are going to run in the Docker. Actually, we are not going to run in the Tomcat server. We are going to run in as a Docker image on Docker actually. So we're going to expose some ports like about 8080 or 8090, whatever the customizable port you want to wish. So first we're going to set up a Docker environment, write a Docker file. So create a Docker image and container in the Docker host, integrate Docker host with the Jenkins, and create a CI/CD job on Jenkins to build and deploy it onto the container actually. So this is the process actually. So this is the workflow. Push it to the GitHub, Jenkins, build with a Maven, and deploy it to the Docker. We are not going to deploy it to the Tomcat server. In this phase, we are deploying to the Docker actually. So next is deployment of artifact on a container. So in this phase, we are going to integrate an Ansible actually. So we are going to install Ansible into an Ansible server. So, and we are going to configure that Ansible server. The first process is that GitHub, Jenkins, Maven, build phase, and the configuration management tool, and we are going to deploy it in the Docker actually. Set up an Ansible server, integrate the Docker host with Ansible, Ansible playbook to create an image, Ansible playbook to create and continue, containerize actually, integrate Ansible with Jenkins, CI/CD job to build on Ansible and deploy to the Docker container actually. So this is the workflow. Pull code commit, pull the code from the Jenkins and build with the help of Maven, copy the artifact and configuration management tool which we are going to use, and Ansible. What does an Ansible does is that it's going to deploy the before deploying to the Docker. So it is going to push the image to the Docker hub, and Docker is going to pull the image from the Docker hub, and then it's going to create a Docker container, and where the application is going to run on the Docker container actually. So this is the workflow. This is the second phase. This is the third phase actually. So in the fourth phase, where we will going to deploy our built image, so which is pushed to the Docker hub, right? So we will going to set up a CI/CD job with the GitHub, Jenkins, Maven, and Ansible. So here, instead of Docker container, we are going to use Kubernetes. So we are going to use the Kubernetes. We are going to set up a Kubernetes cluster. So we are going to write a manifest file for service and pod creation and deployment. So we're going to integrate the Kubernetes with Ansible. We're going to write Ansible playbooks to create a deployment and service. Deployment means we're going to deploy our applications in the pod, and service we're going to expose it to the outside world. It is a live production environment. Like that kind of an environment we're going to create and set up actually. So the next is CI/CD job to build code on Ansible and deploy to the Kubernetes. Kubernetes, we are going to use the cloud provider Google Cloud Platform. In that service is GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine. We are going to deploy our application into the Google Kubernetes Engine. So this is a workflow actually. So instead of Docker container, we are using Kubernetes. That's all. So thank you all guys. This is an introduction session about what is the things which we're going to cover in this video, and my introduction and a small brief about DevOps. So in the next video, let us start with the Jenkins installation. Thank you all guys.